Let's check out the other mythics right now to see what we're at. Out of Ravnica, our Model Worm has so much potential. You know, I have a hard time keeping these in stock at the store. We sell them like crazy at $2 a piece. A lot of Celestia players. And I think if Standard turns into a format where you need to get value immediately, like we saw during the Innistrad return to Ravnica, or even more, like if this card would have existed during the Delver of Secrets and the Mirrodin, Scars of Mirrodin, and Innistrad, I think this card would have been a lot better because it was a lot of one-for-oneing during that format, and our Model Worm would require 2 cards. And I'm thinking that this format is turning into that as well. A lot of like Doomblade, a lot of one-for-oneing, a lot of, and then if you can ramp up to our Model Worm with 5/5 Trampler, I think that I think that this card will always have casual appeal for the rest of eternity. It's not terrible. It's actually really, really good in Commander. As I see so many populate Rise of the Redeemed decks, and it's a great 5/5. I mean, that's a token you always want to populate as a 5/5 Trampler. So I'm thinking our Model Room has some potential. Let's just go down the Mythic list, and I'm going to say which ones have the most potential. Let's see, Angel Serenity. I love this card. It actually has gone up recently. It did hit its lowest not too long ago at $3. I mean, it was, well, yeah, I guess it is its lowest now, but we were seeing prices on TCG Player as low as $250 for it, and it did spike back up to, I mean, at least the lowest prices went back up to at least $325. So this card, again, it's mono white. If mono white just needs a few more cards, mono white control could definitely be a thing. If they print like an Oblivion Ring type card, then I'm thinking Angel Serenity is huge. The problem with Angel Serenity is it is a little bit slow for the format, and all the white decks, all the Devotion white decks, seem to be wanting to kill your opponent by turn 7, not control the board and throw out Angel Serenity. And Angel Serenity traditionally was cheated in by Reanimation. So again, if we get a good Reanimation target, then Angel Serenity could see play again. But it's not hard at all to get Devotion into a 7-drop. I've seen it as quick as like turn 3 or 4. I think it's turn 4 you can get Angel Serenity out with a mono white Devotion deck that we built. But it was we just saw that Elspeth almost 100 out of 100 times was better to drop than Angel Serenity. But this card is so good against mono blue. I'll just put that out there. You exile everything, and yeah, amazing card. So I think Angel Serenity does have some potential. Nivmit, let's keep going down. Epic Experiment just does not have potential in Standard. Keep an eye on it for Eternal formats. It has been played in Eternal formats before, and I could see it definitely finding a home in Storm again. They could definitely take out the Pyromancer's Ascensions and go for an Epic Experiment route. All they need is a few more enablers, and it's good to go. Asperia is just garbage. I guess she might be good in Commander. Jace, Architect of Thought is already... Wow, it's back down to 20, but again, this is a card I don't like to spec on $20 cards. It doesn't see any Eternal playability, maybe in Commander. It sees Esper and Mono Blue, but again, those decks are right now at the top of their game. We don't know how Standard is going to affect them. So I really don't like Jace, Architect of Thought. It is the second most expensive card in a highly open set that has continued to be opened a lot for the chase cards, Eternal playable cards like the Shocklands and the Deathrite Shamans. So I do not like it. Jared Golgari Lichlord did spike. The only problem I have with this was in a highly opened pre-constructed deck and a highly open set. So I don't like Jared Golgari Lich. There's just too many. Our store has so many of these. We repack these because of how many of those Golgari versus Izzet decks were opened. Our particular area that I'm in, Walmart was the only store that... Walmart and Kmart were the only stores that sold Magic. So a lot of people bought the theme decks, the Heroes versus Monsters, the Sorin versus T-Balts, the Golgari versus the Izzet. They bought those like crazy because it was kind of their only options. It was a very kitchen table place. So now that we open a card store, we are getting these in like crazy. So maybe it is my own, maybe it's just my experience here, but I've got so many foil Jared Golgari Lich Lords that we repack these guys all the time. And I know that it did find a home. There was a graveyard strategy that used Jared Golgari Lich Lord, and it's a very powerful card. You never know. We'll see. We'll see if this guy sees a home, but there's just so much stock of this guy out there. Necropolis Region is an interesting card. It's great in like a Reanimator strategy. I love it in Whip, but I think there's better targets. So I don't think that this has much potential other than casual. This will be a great card to pick up. Rotation. It'll be a $2 to $3 cards down the road 3-4 years, I'm sure. Same with Niv Mizzet. I could see this seeing a home. It is nice with Devotion. It's blue red Devotion. I could see this seeing a home. It's if you can get this guy out and protect him, he can win the game easily by himself. But again, 6 mana is very awkward, especially double colors in this format right now. So Niv Mizzet, keep your eye on him. Again, there's a lot of these that are floating around. Rakdos' Return. This is a card that I have spec'd into and never ever seen a return on this card. So I think that if a Grixis control list actually comes into fruition, I think that you should actually, I think that $5.50, this card is easily potential to double itself. Rakdos Lord of Riots, again, he might be a missing piece in a Rakdos deck. It's very easy to get him out turn 4. There's tons of ways to enable him. A 6/6 Flying Trampler for 4 mana isn't bad. The only problem with him is I think Underworld Cerberus is just a better card. Say you can 5 mana, so 1 more mana that's a little easier to cast because of the double red, double black. For 1 more mana that has evasion as well, that doesn't have a downside to have to cast it, is a little bit better than Rakdos Lord Riot. So those two are competing in slots, and I just think Underworld Cerberus is an overall better card. A lot more consistent. Sphinx Revelation, I still don't have a clue why this is $22. I think that, I mean, if you look at online, this card is one of the most expensive, if not, I think it is the most expensive. Oh, Jace is now. That is interesting. So it's the second or third most expensive card in the format behind Voice of Resurgence and... No, Voice is down to 30. Wow, I need to keep up on prices. This card's just tanked. So it is the second most expensive card in the format. And in Paper Magic, that's not the case. But Sphinx Revelation does see eternal playability. It actually has seen legacy play. Trostani is one of these cards that it definitely could see a home if hyper-aggressive decks become the norm. And it's just, right now with Tidebinder Mage existing, Trostani is kind of a bad card. Mono Blue is just destroying Celestia aggro. It's really keeping it down. So until Mono Blue goes away, I don't think Celestia really has a shot. And especially strategies like Trostani that's just trying to overwhelm the board. Uvar Hellkite, just casual card. Again, it could be something that post-rotation could go up. And then we have Vraska the Unseen. Again, it's more of a casual card. I could see this card actually if a bug control list ever becomes big. I'm just not the biggest fan of Vraska. She takes way too much investment. She destroys a permanent, and then a lot of times she's answered or takes too long to destroy another permanent. But again, she's on the rise, and I know a lot of people love this card. And again, World's Palmer. So Return to Ravnica is just a casual, friendly format with its mythics like crazy. So anyway, when we get into Modern Season, I think Erupt Decays are worth investing in, and same with Deathrite Shamans. They're both still pretty low. $13 for Deathrite Shaman. That's higher than it's been in a while, but you can pick these up at $10 easily. I still say continue to pump money in Deathrite Shaman. It's a 4 of in most Legacy and Modern decks that use green or black. You see this in Burn. You see this in Modern Burn. You see it in Jund, which is still the #1 deck. You see it in a ton of other decks like Pod. And there's no way that this card will stay at $13. I mean, but rotation might be a better time to buy it. Right before June might be a better time to buy it. Not a fan of Desecration Demon. I would sell them right now. I think that once we get a better 4-drop for black, or if Mono Black Devotion just goes by the wayside, this card will tank. It's not that great of a card. I wouldn't play it in like Rakdos Aggro. Possibly. I don't know. It's just too easy to deal with, especially if we get more tokens. And I'm not the greatest fan of Desecration Demon. So let's go over the mythics. Let's go over them quickly. I think Aurelius Fury does have some potential. I've had some success with it in a mono white devotion with Splash Boros, as you can pump in so much mana to the Aurelius Fury and it can act like a board wipe. And Aurelia the War Leader, it's more of a casual card than anything, but again, a Boros strategy could see some inclusion in that. I love Boreas Enraged. We need a reanimation strategy to make it work. Very fun card. Absolutely loved it in Unexpected Results. But again, it's just not very feasible as a 8 mana casting cost card. Deathpack Angel is just garbage. Domri Raid is amazing card. It does not... I can see this going up to 40 if it came into a tier 1 deck, so there definitely is potential for Domri. So keep your eye on it. But again, I'm not the greatest fan of investing in $22 cards. Enter the Infinite is a great commander card slash... they do play it in Sneak and Show every now and again, right? With Omniscience? I'm thinking they do. Giant Ataphage is just not that great. It's a 7/7 trampler that puts tokens in itself. Fun little casual card. Not going to ever see standard play. Same with Gideon. Never really liked Gideon. Hellkite Tyrant. There's a really fun rogue deck that fan built that I'm eventually going to build with Hellkite Tyrant. And yeah, it's a fun card. We'll see. At $1, you could always pick these cards up. They will always hold value in the long run, but I wouldn't see any spike. And for Born of the Gods, for this particular video, I'm not a fan of this pick. Lazav, again, people have been talking about how he's great in devotion-based decks and sort of Mills-type strategies. I'm just not a fan of Lazav. The Hexproof is kind of cool, but not for me. Lord of the Void is fun in a reanimation-type strategy, but again, we're missing some components for that to actually work. Master Biomancer is definitely a card you should keep your eye on at a $5 card. If we have a Master Biomancer deck again, this spikes in value. I love the blue-green combination. If Born of the Gods is really nice to blue-green, if we get a blue-green Planeswalker, which I do highly think might happen in either this set or the next set, then Master Biomancer could be a great card. So watch out for that. Opposite Odds always a card you need to watch out for because the power level of this card is insane, and it just hasn't quite found a consistent home. You see it every once now and again in black-white strategies. But again, if a black-white-red strategy or a Esper strategy that uses Opposite Odds to the finisher, definitely keep your eye on it because it could definitely hit $20. I think this card could easily double in value. Prime Speaker Zagana, again, this card, if it just needs a few cards. Right now, there's no good blue-green strategy that actually puts like a huge beater into play, that like a Thragtusk. This card's missing a Thragtusk, a value card at a 5-drop. And if we find another card like Thragtusk, a 5-drop blue or green card, then Prime Speaker Zagana will go nuts. I think that this card definitely has potential. So picking him up at $3, this might actually be its lowest of all time. And I read somewhere this is one of the most popular commanders of all time since it's printing. So online it's spiking back up. Is it seeing a UG? Let's see what this UG list is. Okay, so it's seeing play in a profit deck. So I'm thinking that Prime Speaker Zagana actually is a nice little... If you can target it $3, I don't see it going much lower than that. It definitely the potential is there. And again, like I said, this is a highly played commander card. It draws you a ton of cards. And blue-green is a very popular strategy. So let's go on to Dragon's Maze really quickly. I know that this video is getting quite long. We got Blood Baron Viscopa. This card bounces around the $20 mark all the time. Council of Absolute. This is a card I spec'd on because it was at 50 cents at the time. It's actually jumped up to $1. You can find these copies. I think that this has potential. You see it in a Kiki Jiki pod every now and again. You see it in a couple other fringe modern decks. At $1, I think that its price, it needs a lot of work. It needs, like, if the format comes down to a 2-deck format and the mirror becomes a huge thing, and if that is a white-blue strategy, I think Council of Absolute can see some potential. So keep your eye on it. I think you have time, though, to buy out these because the stock of these is probably huge. Deadbridge Chant is a card that, after playtesting it, I absolutely do not like it. It takes so much work, and then so many... At 6 mana, how many turns are left in the game to actually get value out of this? So I'm not a fan of Deadbridge Chant. I've tried to make this card work. Don't like it. Legion Initiative, same thing. The potential seems like it's there, but a lot of times in an aggro deck, you want to be using your 2-drop aggressively not defensively. And even though this is kind of like an Honor the Pure for red and for more like red creatures, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I have seen some people actually use this nicely in a Fanatic Amogus type deck. Ash Zealot works really well with Legion Initiative, Fanatic Amogus, because you exile all your creatures, beginning of upkeep, they all come back in, and Fanatic Amogus a lot of times can hit for crazy amounts of damage. But again, I'd just rather just go for more aggressive strategy than trying to have this pseudo Anthem or like I said, a defensive card in an aggro deck. Master Cruelty is always, the potential is there. I just like Underworld Cerberus so much better. I know that this is probably going to be played in a more of a control deck, but Underworld Cerberus could easily be played in that as well. It's just one of those cards that you have to set it up, and otherwise it's a 1/4 first strike death touch. Yeah, there's just better things to do at 5-drop. Maze's End, of course, is still going to have see play in that type of archetype. Progenitor Mimic, people love this card a lot. I guess it's pretty cool. I did see an awesome deck that, and maybe I'll have to upload it, that used this with, what's the card you win the game? What is that card? Where is that at? The Bio, what was he? What was in rare? The one where you have enough clones of it, you win the game. Anyway, I can't think of it off the top of my head. Progenitor Mimic is an inclusion of that. Ral Zarek, people are really, really starting to spec on this guy. I'm not too sure. I like this card a lot. But he kind of reminds me of Vraska. His +1 is just very, very situational. And right now, he just doesn't seem to fit any sort of deck. It'd probably require a very aggressive red-blue strategy for this guy to see play. But $10 is right around where I like Planeswalkers to spec on. Because if this guy sees play, he'll easily hit $20 overnight. Reap Intellect, not a fan of this card whatsoever. Again, too much mana to actually make it work. Savageborn Hydra, I love this card. $4, a very casual, friendly card. Double Striker with an X in his casting cost is always a roguish card that really appeals to me. I haven't had much success with him. I understand that Shrine of Nyx you can pump out a lot and continue to pump out a lot of mana into him, but in an RG aggro deck, I just don't think that this guy. I mean, RG Heroic he might actually be decent, but I mean I could see myself casting him for 1 a lot more than I'd like to, and a 1/1 double striker for 3 mana isn't the greatest. I mean I do understand you can continue to put counters on him, but we'll see. Well, he's a card you can keep your eye on. Voice Resurgence, still hold a $35 price tag. Have no clue why. He does see tons of play in Modern, but in Standard, this card I think it's just price memory that's keeping this card as high as it is. It's very sad because these are the type of cards that I like to spec on when they don't see Standard play for a few months or a set, and then usually they just bottom out. But Voice actually is kept its value. These are the type of cards when they do bottom out, like Olivia. Olivia saw play, didn't see play. I spec'd on her, saw tons of play, sold her. It didn't happen with Voice this time around. Let's go back on to Advent of the Worm is, of course, a rare that I absolutely love. It's a 4 mana, but there's too many bounce spells in the format right now to make Advent of the Worm pertinent. Too many bounce and sacrifice spells. So anyway, let's go on to the Mythics from M14. We'll call this a wrap. Chandra, I think 21's the right price for. Archangel Thune, again, I think $20 is the right price for. See tons of casual play. Definitely could see some standard play. Just a few cards away from making this card work. Ajani continues to go up in value. I really like Ajani Call of the Pride, but it's a reprint. I have a hard time seeing Ajani holding this $10 value. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe it will find a huge place in the mono white weenie deck. We'll have to wait for Born of the Gods to see if there's an amazing 2-drop, because then you can go amazing 2-drop into Ajani Call of the Pride. Not a fan of Darksteel Forge, but apparently sees a lot of play in casual. And same thing to Devout Invocation. Not a fan of this card whatsoever. Garruk, I think this is the right. Again, these Chandra Pyremaster Garruk, I think this is the right price for these cards. I don't think that there's too much risk rather than reward. And I think that they'll stay around $20 each. Jace Memory Adept, it's a 3-time reprint. There's way too many copies of these running around. $8, $7.50. I know a lot of people love Mill, but I highly doubt Jace can go up more than this. Like I said, 3-time reprint. at $7.50, $8. Colonial Hydra, we could see him in a strategy, RG strategy. I'm not a big fan of Colonial Hydra. I think there's better 5-drops. Liliana Dark Realms, $5.50. I've tried to make this card work over and over. I think this is the right, $6 is probably the right price for this. Again, it's a reprint. Primeval Bounty has so much potential. If the format slows down, and we get some pretty good green, later green type decks, I like this more in a green-blue strategy. So if you see green-blue, this could be like their Assemble the Legions that they bring in versus control, or they bring in against kind of the mid-range. So keep your eye on Primeval Bounty. $5 is pretty high for it for fringe play, but it is a mythic. Ring of Three Wishes, casual card. It will go up in value in the long run, but right now is not the time to spec on it. Same thing with Rise of the Dark Realms. Same thing with Scourge of Valkis is interesting because it's a 5-mana 4/4 flying creature that is decent. It does 1 damage when it comes into play. We need more dragons to make this guy work, and they've got to be good dragons, and they got to be low casting cost dragons. Otherwise, Scourge of Valkis will never see play. I like the devotion on this guy, though, but again, the 5-drop slot in a red deck is actually open. There's not many 5-drop. I mean, this is after like Perforos, and it's a good enabler for Perforos. So people might actually start getting creative with Scourge of Valkis because it pretty much, you're just 1 devotion off after you cast Scourge to get Perforos online. But again, it needed to be a 5/5, needed to have haste, needed something else to really make it pertinent, as you have to have more dragons. 1 damage at 5 mana is probably not worth it. What are you going to kill with 1 damage? Shadowborn Demon, I love this card. Keep your eye on it. If any sort of black reanimation strategy comes to fruition, Shadowborn Demon could definitely be one of those engines for early game removal plus late game reach. And Wind Raider Sphinx, 2 casual, 7 mana is way too much to invest in a card that doesn't get immediate value. So, and there's some cool little rares from this set you can look into from M14. M14, I think, was dismally opened. I don't think that there's many. That's why we're seeing Mutavault at $27 for a rare when it's the second most expensive card in the format. You know that this set hasn't been open much because, yeah, rare at $27, that's almost unheard of. Even Snapcaster Mage had a hard time keeping up at that. And I guess Mutavault definitely has maybe even more power than Snapcaster. But Snapcaster is seen in the #1 deck. I know Mutavault is as well. But it is a reprint. There still is tons of Mutavaults from back in the day when it was reprinted in, Lorwyn block that I think would keep the price down. But, I mean, it does seem modern play. It does seem legacy play. But like I said, those legacy demands and modern demands were already met by the Lorwyn printing. This is just standard that has made Mutavault continue to rise, and I think that is the only explanation, is that M14 was such a dismally opened set. But I mean, Scavenging Ooze, other than this was a promo and this was everywhere, I think that's my only, and it's not seeing much standard play at the moment. So there's another card you can definitely keep your eye on, is Scavenging Ooze. The card is just incredibly powerful. Anyway, that's basically my Rogue Market update. Let me know in the comments what you think. Again, we'll just go over my Theros picks. I like Underworld Cerberus. I like the Fabled Hero. I like Mr. Devotion, Mr. Reverent Hunter. And then I'm a big fan of the Minotaur, the Rageblood Shaman. So let me know your picks. Give me a top 5 pick of what cards you think that you're watching, and maybe we can have a little bit of a collaboration here and figure out what cards that we'll be speccing on as a Rogue Deck Builder community. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckbuilder.com. Thanks for watching.